All right, hello everyone. This is the Pro Wrestling Program. My name is Kyle, and this is the AEW Dynamite review for November 8th, 2023. Now, full disclosure, I am not the biggest AEW fan. I would definitely say that I enjoy WWE's product on more metrics than I do AEW's. Having said that, I really enjoy some of the wrestlers that are in AEW. Christian Cage, Edge, Danielson, and Sting are not only some of my favorite current active wrestlers, but of all time. I absolutely love Christian Cage. I would say that he is probably doing the best promo work of his entire career, and he's about to turn 50. It's wild to even say that because his promo work has been good for 20 years. It's wild to be saying that. So anyway, in terms of the people that they have in AEW, some of the guys like Claudio Castagnoli, MJF. MJF is probably the only main draw that AEW has left at this point. Arguably, I mean, Kenny Omega is probably up there a little bit. Danielson is sometimes still seen as a draw, but once again, Tony Khan seems to not really know what to do with his main draws. I mean, he fired his biggest one, and now he's kind of turning MJF into his world champion is focusing on comedy characters, comedy in his matches as a babyface, which can work to a degree, but I think they're going a little bit too far with the comedy with his character. And he's caring more so about the Ring of Honor tag team titles, which aren't even the main tag team titles in AEW, instead of his world championship. I don't know what Tony Khan is thinking in a lot of things. So that's why I think it's a little bit easier to make fun of AEW because they are the second biggest promotion. And Tony Khan makes crazy mistakes, but goes crazy afterwards if it doesn't work. Like if it doesn't work, he melts down on Twitter as a grown man of $1 million company that probably grosses what, $100 million a year or something. Like it's a major company, and he has a meltdown when things don't go his way. You would never see Vince McMahon or Triple H doing that, ever. Jeff Jarrett didn't do that. I don't think Dixie Carter even went to that degree. Like it's unheard of. Maybe Vince Russo would do that, but you don't want to be compared to Vince Russo necessarily. So anyway, just giving you some context as we go into this, I will definitely say positives for AEW because there are some things that they do very well. There's a specific angle, which there's one little bit of a negative, but it's not a big problem for AEW necessarily. And it's an interesting segment, and I like what they're doing with it. So we'll get into that in a bit. But let's start off with this entire show, just letting you know ahead of time that I will be harping on AEW when they do their negatives, just like I would WWE. If WWE does something incredibly dumb, like not mentioning the Intercontinental Championship when Sami Zayn was talking to Seth Rollins and saying the only title that they don't have on Raw now is the world title. It's like, no, they don't have the Intercontinental Championship either. Anyway, let's dive into AEW. This is not necessarily about WWE versus AEW. We can have those discussions later on, but that's not what this is about right now. I just wanted to throw some context. All right, let's dive into this. So we had MJF having a promo against Garcia, hyping up their match. And I liked this promo because, first of all, I think that Garcia is a joke character. His dance is stupid. I understand why he's doing it because he is a comedy character at this point in time, and it does get a pop from the crowd. So I understand why he's doing it. But what I don't understand is why Tony would have them wrestle. I don't think it's a good idea to have your world champion putting his title on the line against a joke character. I don't think that helps anybody. It doesn't help necessarily Garcia. It doesn't help MJF either, especially MJF. And if it does help Garcia, I don't think it outweighs bringing down MJF to the point where he has to be wrestling and having a world title match against a joke character. I think it devalues him and the championship itself, which he doesn't even have right now because Jay White has it. Anyway, at least MJF cut a good promo that kind of built up Garcia and their title match that they were going to have. So that was good. What I think also happens here is that we're going to start off really strong in AEW ratings because everybody is going to be watching the first segment, which has MJF. The first segment on AEW always does the best. So you should try to have something in there that pops the number even higher and keeps their attention, and talk about the main event that's going to happen so that you potentially have a chance of keeping those viewers as the main event draws nearer, because generally AEW kind of goes like starts here, goes down here, and then the main event. And then if it's Orange Cassidy in the main event, it's nobody's watching. I'm kidding. Not a lot. The least amount of viewers are watching an Orange Cassidy main event. That seems to be, I think they hit under 600,000 in the tag match from a few weeks ago. Anyway, moving on. Then we had the world title match of MJF and Garcia, and I think that should be at the end of the show. I think that they should have built towards this. Granted, it's Garcia, so I kind of get why it shouldn't necessarily be main eventing, but now you're going to have MJF, so you're going to have a really big number at the beginning, and it's just going to go down from there. I cannot see it going back up after this, especially with what they were leaving for the end here. We'll see. Maybe Jay White is a draw. This would definitely be a good time to kind of show if he is or not. We'll have an idea if the number goes back up. That's going to be impressive to me. But either way, the match itself, I liked it because at the beginning, MJF has some really good offensive moves. I like it when he's on the offense. He's got some nice moves in there where he gets the crowd behind him 100%, and then he adds in a little bit of comedy. And I don't feel that, considering who he was up against, he went too crazy in his match. And I've seen it sometimes where I'm like, you're joking too much. You're pandering to the crowd too much. And I think that for AEW specifically, which is, I think, more so on the hardcore wrestling side of things, so they are looking for match quality, he's making it a little bit more like sports entertainment, which is okay, because wrestling should be a mix of both. A lot of sports entertainmentship outside of the ring, and inside of the ring, you're doing a good heel and face dynamic with good wrestling, with a bit of sports entertainmentship mixed in. It's a nice blend of everything. And this match, surprisingly, did really well with that. What we had is that they started it off, and good offense by MJF. And then when he basically, MJF took down Garcia, and then he showboated by doing the little dance of Garcia quickly and looking at the crowd and thinking, that's just trash. That is so dumb. It was I like it when another wrestler takes something that is on the repertoire of the other character and uses it to showboat. I like that. And MJF doing this worked perfectly. That's what you want to do. Do the little stupid dance and then look at the crowd like that is the dumbest thing in existence. Well done. And then we had afterwards the sportsmanship handshake that he always does. So we went for it. Garcia, of all people, so many people fall for this, and Garcia doesn't. Why would they let Garcia be one that doesn't? And then instead he does the showboat, which is dumb, and then MJF just goes and rakes the eyes at that point in time. That was well done too. That's what should happen when you have a main event guy or a big uppercarder going up against a comedy character, and they do their stupid showboat thing where people should not just be watching them and letting them showboat. They should do something and smack them. Orange Cassidy versus Moxley at the pay-per-view match that they had, when he was going to do his little kicks because he put his hands in his pockets, Moxley just absolutely wrecked him. And that's what should happen, because you should not be doing these stupid little moves that get the crowd to pop sometimes, but is dumb in an actual wrestling match. And that's what happened. So he raked the eyes. Well done. All right. And then afterwards, they just continue on with the match. MJF obviously won. He went to go give him an actual handshake after the end of the match, and the two goons that were with Garcia pulled him away and didn't let him do it. All right, whatever. I guess that they're trying to build up Garcia a little bit. I don't see why. I feel like I wouldn't necessarily, there's a ton of other guys that should be ahead of him, but I don't think that that's who they should be focusing on. Next up, we had the Sting and Darby match, and I will say, as much as I make fun of some of these things, it is a guilty pleasure for me to watch Sting still wrestling in 2023. I mean, I've been a fan of him since the mid-90s, right? So, like, it's crazy that he's still going. I know it's at the end of his career, he can't do much, but what I will say, and I will give Tony props to this, he made Sting have a good last run in a wrestling promotion. And I think that he handled. See, the thing with WWE is Sting lost to Triple H in his debut match at WrestleMania, and then he fought Seth Rollins at a pay-per-view for the world title, but he lost as well there. That one doesn't bother me as much because that's technically what should have happened. But he only had a tag match with Cena versus the Big Show and Seth Rollins, and I was like, they had a tag team match on Raw where is the only win for his WWE career. So he won one match and lost two. Kind of sucks. I'm not necessarily saying that he should have won all the matches that he did in the tag matches that he's had with Darby, but he was relevant again. And I like that he had a swan song for the last little bit of his career that he always wanted, essentially. I mean, he could have retired in TNA, but you want a bit of a bigger audience at that point in time. Granted, at the time, TNA was pulling in some good numbers. Anyway, needless to say, I was happy for this. I understand why some people might not be into this because Sting is super old and he shouldn't necessarily be winning all these matches. It's tag matches at the same time. And against these people, who I think were called the Outlanders, I wrote that down. I'm not 100% even if that's who they were. They were people that I don't think I've seen before. I might have. I don't remember them because that's AEW's roster sometimes. Tony just throws these people on. And he's like, here, wrestle tonight. We'll book you back in 6 months from now, 3 months from now. Are you going to have a meaningful program? Probably not. Why should I care? Sometimes you can have job guys, but I feel like AEW has too many of them. So that's a bit of a problem. Short match. Sting and Darby won the match. It was a nothing match. It was just basically like, here, have another tag team match for Sting. That's essentially what it was. Didn't enjoy it too much. And then we had Swerve versus Penta. I thought that this kind of had a chance of being good. They had a good amount of time, but I don't feel that they really jive too much. Penta can be good. Swerve can be good, but I feel like they didn't have a really good chemistry necessarily. And there was like a botch at one point for a 450 splash where Swerve was supposed to miss or Penta was supposed to do some kind of reversal. And they kind of he did the 450 splash, but he didn't really land on it. And it was he just kind of stood there and there's just a bunch of limbs hanging around. It was really weird and looked bad. And I was like, eh. And then there was another part too, where I think that Swerve might've messed up. The timing was off in this match for a few things. There was some good stuff here, but just, it kind of felt like a little bit of a letdown. And then we had Hangman come out. And the crowd wasn't necessarily cheering. It sounded like they were kind of booing a little bit. And I get that because I feel like people want Swerve to be the guy that comes up here. But I think that Hangman is being booked as the babyface. Another thing too, and I don't know how some people feel about this, but having Prince Nana come out and doing his stupid dance once again, I just don't think that dancing is necessarily good. Well, here's the thing. Prince Nana could be part of another, like he could be managing somebody else that is a lower card guy that they're trying to push a little bit more so that he can get a little bit like higher up and maybe in the mid card. I think Swerve is in the mid card heading towards either the upper card or the main event. And that's what they're trying to do. And I don't think that having Swerve as a serious character with a comedy character like Nana, who's dancing like he just got lobotomized, is necessarily the right way to go. Joke character with a serious character. Could you imagine Brock Lesnar coming out with Prince Nana dancing around with him? Could you imagine Roman Reigns coming out with Prince Nana dancing around with him? I could see it with Seth Rollins, unfortunately. And that's not a positive thing for Seth. Seth, stop the joking stuff. Anyway, moving on. Then we had the Jericho and Omega promo with the Young Bucks showing up. Drama within the Elite with the Young Bucks, who I'm sure this promo, depending, because I can't remember what time was that's getting close to the 1 hour mark. It'll be interesting to see where the ratings are for this, because Young Bucks in the second, well, whenever they show up, it seems, even if the only time that they might be able to be safe is in that first segment of a Dynamite show, like 8 to 8:15, where they might be okay, where people are watching. But I feel like we might get a little bit of a nosedive here. And this was a weird promo because on the one hand, it makes sense for what they were saying. I kind of get it that Young Bucks, they were part of the Elite with Kenny Omega, and now he's joining Jericho, which was his rival, and they want to be a trio once again. On the surface, it makes sense. Bucks suck, though, so I'm not into it necessarily because I just think that they're whining all the time, and I can't tell the difference between the two of them. There's the one guy that talks too fast, and he's the main talker of them. The other guy barely says anything and kind of just looks around, the one that has the bandana the most of the time. And I keep thinking that he's Matt. I don't know I don't know which one's Matt and which one's Nick. But either way, they're whining, and then Kenny is kind of in the forefront, and he's got this really baggy t-shirt on, and all he's doing is kind of going, it was really weird to watch his facial expressions while Jericho and the Bucks are talking to each other, and he's not getting involved. Finally, he does at the end, and what he said actually makes sense, that he says that they're the best tag team, but if they're asking him if he can beat them, he can clearly do that. So he's totally down for this match. So I liked what he said. When he finally got to talking, it was good. But when he was on, not in the foreground, so you can see him clearly, because he's the one that you see, he was the biggest one and in the picture, but he's just doing these weird facial reactions as Jericho and Young Bucks are going back and forth with each other. It was just kind of weird, something that I noticed. And then at one point, what I liked, what Jericho said, the Young Bucks said, we were part of the Elite and we started this whole thing. And Jericho said, that's funny because I feel like it was the four of us that started it. And they should have mentioned it's fine that they didn't mention Cody, but yeah. And then the Bucks are like, oh, of course you would say that. I felt like the Young Bucks, while they were part of the Elite and they did help grow AEW to a degree, it was by far more so Cody, Omega, and Tony Khan. Young Bucks were part of it to a degree with All In, but I feel it was much more Cody and Omega. And in terms of actual All Elite wrestling, Jericho, because he was the biggest name and their first world champion, and he actually drew people in at the beginning. And he doesn't lose viewers like the Young Bucks do every time that they're on a match later on in the show. If they're in the second hour, that's going to just plummet. Orange Cassidy is the only one that I've seen that can plummet even further down. It's crazy how they're still pushing them so much. And while I wasn't the biggest fan of Omega because he did a lot of comedy stuff back in the day, more so like his facial reactions. I'm not even talking about like what he used to, I think he's wrestled a broom or a doll or something like that, and he wrestled a kid. Whatever, to me, it was in a promotion that nobody watched. It wasn't on the mainstream wrestling program like AEW, WWE. It wasn't even on New Japan Pro Wrestling in Japan, right? So I don't think it was. I think it was some other random show over there. But what I didn't like back in the day before he started becoming serious was he was just like Hadouken and he was doing comedy stuff. And I don't like comedy stuff for when you're going up onto the upper card and main event. But he's slowly been getting away from that. And I feel like his matches have really been benefiting from that by far. I mean, it does help that he's been wrestling Will Ospreay this year. But still, I feel like I'm very much starting to kind of see why so many people tend to like Omega. In terms of the match that they're going to have at Full Gear, it makes sense storyline-wise. And also them putting up that their number one contendership for the tag titles are being put up. So if Jericho or the Golden Jets, which that's an okay name, if they end up winning, they'll get the number one title shot. And if the Young Bucks win, Jericho and Omega can no longer be a tag team. I like that. Good stakes on both sides. Very well done in terms of that. While I don't like the Bucks and I don't think that necessarily they're good wrestlers for ratings, I think that this was well done for what they're trying to get accomplished with Full Gear. Well done there. Okay, and then we had Samoa Joe putting on his Ring of Honor TV title on the line against Keith Lee, which I thought would be a slobber knocker. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. It was still an okay match, but it wasn't necessarily amazing either. It was just kind of in the middle. And then afterwards, and then Joe eventually wins. like I could go over the match, but when there's nothing really of substance, I feel like let's just get on to what the angles are and what we're going to be talking about storyline wise, because they cut the most interesting segment of this entire night, including with what MJF did in terms of his promo before his match against Garcia and his world title match, which was Samoa Joe saying that he always believed that hunger builds the greats. So he is vacating the Ring of Honor world title, or the Ring of Honor world title, the Ring of Honor TV title. He just spat on that title. He's the longest reigning champion. And he's like, this isn't why I came to AEW, which is true. He didn't go there to become the Ring of Honor champion at all. And not the secondary champion by far, but he ends up getting it. He gets the longest reigning he is the longest reigning champion. And then he spits on it by saying, but I'm vacating it. On the one hand, yes, it is a Ring of Honor title, so it shouldn't be on AEW programming to begin with. And it's Ring of Honor, not AEW. But Tony owns both promotions, so you would think that he would try to, make all titles look relevant, but you shouldn't have your AEW guys on AEW TV defending the title for those Ring of Honor titles. But anyway, because now you have everybody that has a title, so none of the titles mean anything. It's like every match, there's a champion somewhere. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, so he vacates it, but his reasons for doing it is because he's going for the world title, the AEW world title. And I like that because hunger builds the great. So I'm vacating this secondary title on this third promotion, really, because WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor in North America anyway. I mean, Ring of Honor must be bigger than Impact right now, right? I would say so. Not back in the day, but in terms of Impact in 2023, I would probably say that Ring of Honor is a bigger company because of AEW and Tony Khan. So I like that. He's vacating it so because he can't be tied to this mediocre title when he wants the world title. It elevates the world title at the cost of the Ring of Honor TV title. And I think that hurts this guy. It elevates the other one a little bit more, and Samoa Joe and MJF to a degree. I like this far more than I didn't like it, even though it hurt the title a bit. All right. So that, to me, that was the best part, other than when we're going to get to at the very end of the show here. Then we have Orange Cassidy cut. It was a short promo, thank God, on Moxley, and it was atrocious. Don't make Orange Cassidy talk. I understand why he has a gimmick of, being pockets and running around and kicking people because he doesn't care. And for some reason, we're supposed to care that he doesn't care. It's dumb. I don't like him at all. I know he has his fans. At this point in time, Tony Khan has no choice but to book him and push him to a small degree because he is one of their merch sellers. I don't know how much necessarily he's selling compared to like other people, other than he's at the top. But at the same time, there's not a lot of merchandise for AEW to begin with. So he's one of them that they have. I just don't think that in terms of what people are, the casuals that you want to build your brand on shouldn't be Orange Cassidy at all. And this promo to me was just horrible. And you have Hook in the background, just kind of standing there. And it's just the two laziest slobs that you have in AEW. And then he's going up again. And then he took off his glasses. He took off his sunglasses. And I'm like, it's not intimidating in the slightest. You don't look like you could beat up anybody. Like, Hook looks like he could beat you, and Hook doesn't look like he could beat necessarily anybody. These are the two weakest looking characters in all of AEW, I think. Cutler might be a little bit, well, but I think he's tall, so at least he has height. Anyway, I just don't like Orange Cassidy. And then we had the Guns versus Jobbers. I don't even know if they were actual AEW wrestlers or they were legit just town jobbers, but the Guns beat them in such a quick fashion. I was like, oh, okay, the match is done, which is fine. They're building up the Guns. The Guns necessarily don't need to have long matches all the time. And the Guns afterwards went on the mic. I liked it. The crowd was booing them relatively harshly, louder than any boos that I had heard the entire night, which almost felt like they were piped in. Now, we know that WWE does this. I don't know if AEW does. It sounded like they might have been. That's unfortunate if they are. If they're not, then I think that like the Guns as heels is it working, or are they getting go away heat? That's the thing, is that I'm having a hard time with. I hope they're not, because I think that I actually really enjoy the Guns quite a bit. I think that they're still relatively new, but considering how new they are, they're doing a phenomenal job. And I feel like they're able to talk, they're able to wrestle, they understand charisma. You can't really necessarily understand charisma, but I was gonna say they have charisma and they understand where they need to be and how to look. They have the makings of being an excellent tag team going forward in a few years from now. I think that they have the makings of being really big in the wrestling industry, and I'm hoping everything goes really well. So very much like this, and they were building up that they're going to be the new tag team champions. Their promo was really spot on. I liked it quite a bit. Then we had a Moxley promo with Wheeler Utah trying to look intimidating and angry. And Moxley, and then you look at Moxley, and Moxley isn't my favorite. He sounds kind of drunk all the time, but that's part of his shtick. And I know that he has a lot of fans, and at least I see him as a credible. I don't like him when he bleeds all the time. I think that is the dumbest thing, because it takes away when people do end up bleeding in a match. If you see it every week, it's not going to mean anything. And that's what it was starting to happen with AEW. But I think that he is at least a top talent, and you can see that the guy oozes some kind of charisma. It might not be for everybody, but he does ooze it. And he's able to talk, and he's moving around, and it's just, you are glued to him. And Wheeler Utah is just looking in the background, trying to look tough, and it's not working at all. And then he talked, and I was like, oh God, this is horrible. And now we're going to have a tag match next week between Orange Cassidy and Hook versus Wheeler Utah and Moxley. And Moxley's going to have to like try to make three guys look good. Oh, Lord. I don't know why they picked Utah to be in that part of that club. Anyway, then we had Julia Hart versus Red Velvet. Nothing much there. It's the one women's match that they had. Oh, they had at one point, sorry, and I forgot to mention this. They had the women's world champion, I can't remember her name, and Toni Storm having the contract signing. It was okay. I mean, the women's champion can't speak English, is her first language, so she got her point across, I think. And Toni Storm, while it is entertaining with her new gimmick, and I think it is working, it's making it more interesting, but it's a little bit too over the top. And I feel like because that she wasn't doing that before, it really feels like she's putting on an act, which is kind of weird. Like, you know that that's clearly what she's doing, but I guess I think I would have liked to have seen a transition of her slowly seeing that this is her model and that she wants to emulate that. I think that seeing that to slowly get to where she is now would have worked a little bit more. Whatever, it's kind of working. It's making her interesting, but and I was more interested in that than I was the Julia Hart and Red Velvet match. I just didn't write it down. And then we had the main event, Jay White versus Mark Briscoe. I don't know. I mean, it was an okay match. It was kind of good. I don't necessarily know how well the audience knows Mark Briscoe. I'm not talking about the crowd, because the other thing too. Okay, the crowd. I didn't look to see how many, if it was sold out or not. It wasn't sold out, because you could clearly see that the top for all around, even on the camera side, where the camera is looking at, they weren't there. It was a very dim Dynamite this week in terms of the crowd. There was very few lights on the crowd because half of them weren't there. I don't know why Tony wants to keep booking these big venues. It's possible that he booked them months in advance, and tickets are now starting to go down at this point in time, like a few months ago, like after basically in September. When Punk left, tickets started to go down in North America. That's weird. Orange Cassidy started getting a big push, and audience and ratings are going down. That's weird. Anyway, it's just something that I noticed. And anyway, I'm talking about the audience at home looking at Mark Briscoe. Will this have drawn in people? Jay White is good. Jay White can talk and he can wrestle. I don't necessarily know how many people are behind him just yet. He did have a phenomenal match with FDR on Collision with Juice as well in that tag team match, that 2 out of 3 falls match. Awesome. Got a lot of views too for that too, for Collision back at that time. So that was, I'm curious to see where we're going to end up here. And then we had afterwards, what I thought was more interesting after the match. And then the other thing too, Mark Briscoe was just making a fool out of the Guns and Juice. And I was like, oh, like it's a redneck guy that, he's taking on 4 people, including the world number 1 contender, or I guess because once he won this match, but Jay officially became the number 1 contender. I thought he was already the contender for the world title for Full Gear. I don't know what happened there. I don't know why they had to. Anyway, so now we have Jay White versus Mark Briscoe. Jay officially wins. He's the number 1 contender for the world title at MJF with MJF at Full Gear. MJF comes up at the back, knocks out the Guns and Juice with a punch, although I think he had the diamond ring on. If he did, that makes sense because it's supposed to knock people out for a longer period of time. And then he went to go for Jay White, but he couldn't. And then we looked in the back and a bunch of ninjas, masked men, were attacking the Acclaimed. And then we saw the devil mask again. MJF runs to the back, and then they say the announcers did a good job. I feel like for the most part, I don't know. Who is the one announcer? There's Taz, which I think does a good job. The other guy that's been in WCW for so long, his name's eluding me at the moment. And then there's another guy that wears a mask, and I think that he's just absolutely horrible and makes he makes AEW Dynamite sound like a second-rate promotion because of the announcing from him and the way that he brings people in and talks. I don't think it's good. Put Taz on there. Have him as the main guy. Find somebody else. Anyway, what's his name? The guy. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What I will say that they did a good job with is they said that anybody that MJF seems to team with gets attacked and gets hurt. I liked that. And then you had Samoa Joe, like MJF ran in the back and he looked up on them, and it was kind of weird acting from MJF for when he's looking at them and they're all injured, because he was kind of going back and forth, probably because he's waiting for the cue of Samoa Joe to show up and say, hey, it looks like your friends are dropping like flies. Or maybe they're not. As in, like, maybe you still have a friend in me, because he's still willing to be his tag team partner for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. Now, I like that because of what Joe said. It just antagonizes MJF more, and it builds towards that they're going to be feuding. Also, MJF is feuding with everybody, which is a good thing because that's what your world champion should be doing. That's something that Tony is doing very well. He is making the world title for AEW look like the most prestigious title, and it's being booked better than WWE's world title in Seth Rollins and the WWE title in Roman Reigns, because Roman's never there. Whereas AEW, MJF has a target on his back, and everybody's gunning for him. It makes it look like the world title means something because everybody wants a piece of him. Everybody wants a world title shot. That's how you book a champion. It should be chaotic. It should feel like he's in 10,000 feuds because he is. Everybody wants his title. I like that. Now, the one thing that's kind of weird is that, like, while I did like Joe relinquishing the Ring of Honor or the Ring of Honor TV title, now he's saying that, like, I want a world title match with you, MJF, but I'm still willing to be your tag team partner for the Ring of Honor tag titles. Does he care about the tag titles? He made it clear that he wants the world title. And that's why he relinquished the TV title. If he becomes the tag team partner with MJF, and they're officially a tag team and they're the tag team champions for Ring of Honor, does that take away his hunger? That was a whole... I understand that it's because they're going to have like this feud where they're the tag team champions, right? That's the whole point of it. But he just relinquished the title so that he could challenge for the world title. It makes no sense. Part of it's good, part of it's bad. I understand where Joe's coming from, but then he just says, I'm going to be hungry because I don't have a title that's holding me back, but I'm still willing to be a tag team champion with you, MJF. That's AEW for you. So that was Dynamite. Some good things, a lot of things that don't make sense. Let me know in the comments below what you think. That has been the pro wrestling program, and you've all been bearded in. Beardage.